Hey everyone, it's me Noah Mihan of Dark Truth, and before I get into this video, I apologize for not being able to not posting videos for about a month. Ever since I got back from China around April 19th, I just had to deal with a few personal issues and of course jet lag, and I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit burnt out. But now that I'm here, I kind of thought it would be best if I talk about at least considering the fact that there's so much political shit going on with China, especially in regards to tariffs and expansionism and that sort of thing, I would like to add my own perspective because I know it's a lot of things going on within China. Of course, there was the mass surveillance. I mean, I swear to God, there were about 15 cameras for every city block in both Tianjin and in Beijing. Another thing that I noticed, there are a lot more older people than there are younger people, and I would not be surprised if that comes up as a problem in the future due to population decline, which was the result of their one-child policy. And, of course, when I was going to the Great Wall, which, by the way, I highly suggest you guys go do that if you can, there is a major difference between the urban cities like Beijing in comparison to the rural places outside of it. Like they look so undeveloped from what I saw. But there was also another thing that I've noticed as well, and it was when our tour guide was taking us around places, not just the Great Wall, but of course Tiananmen Square, the Forbidden City, the Summer Palace, where the Empress Dowager resided in at the last one before Puyi, the last emperor, took his reign on the throne. And it was in regards to just the historical attitude as well as the political behavior as of right now with China. Because when I got my tour guide told me a whole lot of stuff. Some of it I don't remember, but I do remember that she specifically told me or told my family that Chinese were known to be very peaceful and that they did not really start wars, and that they supposedly they discovered America 100 years before Christopher Columbus. There was actually a theory about that. There was even a book that circulated, and as it turns out, a lot of historians found that to be bullshit. I will link it in the description down below if you guys would like to take a look at it. It will be on the Wikipedia page, just warn you. And also, she claimed that China was the first to invent money. Not a form of currency, but actually was the first to invent money. Now, I honestly don't believe... I don't believe that, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people who know about the history of money don't believe that as well. Probably they agree that China invented its own form, but it goes to show that I understand that a lot of this is meant to prop up China, the People's Republic of China, and it's supposed to prop up this narrative that China is a great thing, that it's created a civilization, and it's created many inventions. And as it turns out, a lot of its neighbors did not have these inventions, and China gave it all to the entire world, and they just copied it all and claimed it for themselves. Which I'm not okay. China did create many things, and invented many things, and was a major, and still kind of is a very important civilization in regards to the makeup of mankind's history. But to say that it did all of this and everyone just simply copied them is just complete and utter horseshit. And by the way, this is coming from an American. There's this stereotype of how Americans can be arrogant, loudmouth. We're arrogant, but we're not that arrogant. I guarantee you that. But back to China. They go into this sort of thing of how China was like this perfect thing, and then of course it led to the century of humiliation. In fact, the Summer Palace, the one that was on a lake, apparently it was the rebuilt one, and it was a replacement for the Summer Palace that was destroyed when the British and the French tore it down and looted the place. And it's become a national monument. And honestly, a lot of this stuff was meant to convey that the Westerners, the Europeans, were the ones who looted China and took many of the jewels and treasures, that sort of thing, away from China. Which I must say, I do not like that. I don't like it when anyone does it. I don't like it when white people do it. I do not like it when black people do it. I do not like it when communists, fascists, or anyone do that to try to tear down history, because history is history. The good, the bad, and the ugly. They should, and if possible, they should be restored in their proper place. Now, that being said, it was obviously meant to convey as a means of that the the West, or the Europeans, were the ones that caused a lot of the problems that were going on within China. And I just find that very fascinating, because based upon that attitude, there is a huge lack of self-awareness in regards to the history of China. Because from what I remember, after several expeditions, the Chinese Empire found that they didn't really need to advance more, that they were perfect, that they were the perfect society. And then when it came within the 1840s, with a little bit of isolationism, kind of like what neighboring Japan did, knock knock, the Europeans come in with their steamboats. And they wiped the floor with the Chinese in the Opium Wars. And with the several wars that came afterwards. And I just kind of thought, based upon this, the attitude of, at least historically for the Chinese, it's kind of like, if I were to put this in a give it a personality, it would be kind of like that, it would be kind of like how beta males kind of view an alpha, a guy who acts tough, who tries to be tough, and tries to use violence, kind of acts like a bully, when the reality is that they have insecurities deep within their mind that they're trying to cover as a result of that. And everyone knows this. Everyone sees through this illusion, and they despise it, no matter how hard China tries. And that's basically the gist of it, because, again, there were so many problems that occurred as a result of what happened with China, and how it basically fell, specifically the Qing dynasty, which was the last dynasty that ruled China as an actual empire, an imperial government. And in all honesty, they don't really learn the mistakes, except for the fact that many of these guys were corrupt, and yet they don't understand how, and yet they don't really mention how the West not only defeated them, but why they chose to go after China in the first place. Why did Europe choose China? Why was China considered vulnerable? Why this? Why that? And nothing was mentioned in that case. Now, to be fair, there was a lot of other history as well, just like in regards to the royal family, especially when we were in the Forbidden Palace. But again, you can see that, it's especially within the current political situation, because it is clear that China wants to regain the glory days from when it was a major empire, when it was able to influence so many nations, which is why they've been doing a lot of stuff. They want to try to expand. They want to try to build new islands. They want to attain trading routes, especially within the South China Sea. They want to attempt to invade Taiwan. They want to do all this stuff in order to reclaim those days. But in the end, there's still this facade that they're somehow strong, when in reality, people see through that. They see through the cracks. They know that there are certain insecurities. Razorfist even mentioned the fact that there was a possible purging of the military while there were naval exercise drills close to Taiwan. And this only goes to show that that mentality is still around. They definitely want to recapture the glory days of, again, when they were a major empire, a superpower, if you will, kind of like that of the United States. But they refuse to. But from my understanding, the ruling the ruling nation, the ruling government, the Communist Party, and maybe even Chinese society as a whole refuses to look into what they did wrong specifically. And the reason why I think this way is because it contrasts that with Japan. Japan had to go through the Sengoku Jidai, where a lot of warring states, clans were fighting against each other, and eventually the Tokugawa won out, and they isolated themselves for 200 years. Until the United States showed up with gunboat diplomacy and forced the nation to open up. But this is where Japan differed from that of China. They realized what was going on. They realized that unless they do something now, that they would unless they learn from the West, they would probably have to deal with not only the unequal treaties, they would probably suffer the same fate as China, being constantly beaten, constantly being unequal to that of the European powers. And they decided to evolve. They evolved their government, they evolved their society, they evolved their military. And it became such a big deal that they managed to beat, of course, China in 1895, but they also surprised the world when they defeated the Russians in 1905. And even now, and I'm skipping through a lot of stuff, including the World Wars. I understand that. But they are still now an economic superpower. They are a major market within Asia. And hell, a lot of people even revere Japan. There's a reason why manga is so loved in places like France or even the United States. And the point I'm trying to make here is that Japan managed to learn from this. I don't think that China isn't. And I think that along with so many other things, such as the issue with their military, the fact that they're being run by communists, population issue, among so many things, the main issue that I think is going to hold back the People's Republic of China is their arguably arrogant attitude, as depicted historically, because they refuse to look at what they have done wrong. And unless they look at themselves and figure that part out and improve themselves, instead of just trying to show off as if they're this big mighty person, when in reality they're a paper tiger, I am willing to bet that they will not regain their status as a superpower, and I'm willing to bet that more problems will happen along the way. Maybe not in the near future. It could, maybe possibly, but definitely some point in the future. My name is Noah Meehan on The Art of Truth. Please post your comments down below, directly subscribe or directly message me. Please, and if you have any issues regarding my videos, such as how I speak or whatever, my improv, please post them down in the comment section down below or directly message me. Thank you.
West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains.